She is an institution on Vancouver Island and probably across Canada. Joelle Rabu, spectacular singer, is here in the Zoom booth. Joelle, I can't believe I've never met you before. I'm so happy. I'm a fan.
Kathy, I'm speechless after that kind of an intro. I don't know if you're going to get anything out of me now. Thank you very much. What a pleasure to meet you on this level. I've met you in the Port Theatre lobby and all sorts of other places, but here, it's a more of a tete-a-tete today. So I'm really thrilled. Thank you for having me.
Well, what's exciting for me is we get to pick open all the cool things that make you you on this program. And so this is really exciting for me. I've known your son, Nico Rhodes, and, the piano heist and the many, hullabaloo and the many things that he's done. I've also known the family from Unity Church, where I saw him as a little boy, or a younger man, let's put it that way. He wasn't a little boy at that time. But at the end of the day, I've watched your son grow and progress, but all along I've known that you have been not only the inspiration as his mom, but as a spectacular singer in your own right. Tell us a little bit about who and how and what, and tell us about you.
Wow. Well, being this old, you have a lot of resume to cover. So I'll try to put it in a nutshell. Excuse me. I was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, on the Red River, namely because both my parents, who are from France, from Brittany, uh, they immigrated to Canada and they landed in Winnipeg when my mom, who was 40 at the time, said, "That's it, we're stopping here to have the baby." And so they were heading for Vancouver Island because they had heard it was very much like the coastal regions of northwestern France where they were born and raised. And so we landed in Winnipeg and stayed there for 12 years. So I had the most amazing childhood in Winnipeg on the Red River. If you can imagine, my summers were filled water skiing on the Red, camping at Falcon Lake, just having the best time, not a care in the world. My parents were my best friends. My brother and older brother and sister are amazing people. And then my winters were, just spent snuggled up in layers and layers and layers of clothing outside all day in the white, beautiful, sunny snow, because that's what we had in Manitoba in the
Yeah.
winter. And so I was either on the ice skating on the Red or swimming in it or, camping or building forts in the snow. And so I had a remarkable childhood. And then when my father got hooked, no pun intended, on salmon fishing on a trip to the West Coast, to Courtney, to Campbell River at the time, he fell in love with the West Coast and came back that August of 71 and said, "That's it, we're moving." And we were here in December of 71.
Wow.
We landed in Courtney. And so I went to Courtney Junior High. I made all my friends there, with whom I'm still best friends with. All of the ones that I went to school with, I remember them all. We're still in close touch. And I was very much involved in the the choir program, the band program, playing flute and stuff. And so basically, I've had a really blessed childhood, I have to tell you. But between family and friends, um, I met the love of my life, my husband, Dusty Rhodes. Early in life, I was 22, 21. We married and had 30 great years together. He's passed since. And basically, Nico, my son. I also have an adopted son, Dusty's first son, Jace. And so Nico is in the music business now, thanks to this curve that happened in my life in 1983. Dusty and I were living in Vancouver, and we decided to just check out this, what was happening in the city scene. And one day, next thing I know, my brother's bragging about me to a theater director, and I'm on stage doing Piaf, Her Songs, Her Loves. That's 1983 at City Stage in Vancouver. And that show lasted
Wow.
for over a year. So then, Dusty got into it in lighting, and that was it. Like, we were touring together. I was working with the same musicians then that I had for 30 years.
Wow.
So, and then Nico, of course, came along, and he's, totally involved, and selling my CDs at 9 years old in Chester, Nova Scotia on tour and stuff like that. So, like I say, I've had a very blessed life. I've traveled at 16. I I did run away from home, not from anything bad, but I ran away to discover the world and went away for 3 years with my best friend from school. And I've had a really good life, I have to say. So, between music and travel and all those things, and of course, friendships especially.
Well, the world is always a better place when we have our closest of closest with us. And for sure, when you've been able to play music, which is an international language of the heart and of the spirit and the soul, I can only imagine what a brilliant time that you've had over the years with them. Living in Winnipeg as well, that's cold. Dang, that's cold. You have learned resiliency to be out in that beautiful weather, but still, brr.
It's a nice cold, 40 below is okay if you're dressed
If you're
for it.
dressed, yeah. And the sunshine, I think, does make a huge difference.
Exactly.
When you first started out, as a young woman, did you have a particular artist that you were leaning towards? Was there a musician that said that you saw and you went, I want to do that?
It's funny because my musical upbringing at home with my French parents
Yeah.
was full of, LPs of tango music, of musette, the bal musette, the accordion, the Edith Piaf, Charles Aznavour, Gilbert Bécaud, all the French singers. So I was raised with that. So through osmosis, I think I developed a love for that music and an ear for it.
Yeah.
French is my first language, so it was just normal to hear that music and a lot of classical music my parents loved. My brother especially really, as a baby, he's 20 years older, he would play Scheherazade at in while I was falling asleep, because my cradle
Oh,
was in his room, for instance. So I was really, I developed musical, passions at an early age. But then when I grew up as a teenager, I became very much, I had a 12-string guitar and I was writing songs about war,
yes, of
anti-war. I
course.
remember it was the early 70s, right?
Yes.
And it's like I just basically got into folk music a little bit more,
Yeah.
Canadiana, so the Gordon Lightfoot, Joni
Mm,
Mitchell, Murray, all those things. So that, and of course at band and choral practice at school, that a lot of that music was, what we had in our repertoire. We were singing Canadiana.
yeah.
And so that's two different worlds. And then um, when I married Dusty and we moved to Vancouver in 82, we were going out to all these clubs, as
Yeah.
many theaters as possible. That's why we moved. We left Courtney just because we were spending so much money every month going to Vancouver to see
Yeah.
shows. Why not live there? So we lived in the heyday of Vancouver. And I say the heyday because it was when things were really affordable,
For sure. Yeah. You and me both.
And
I lived there at the same time, and it was much
yeah,
different than it is now. Yeah.
much different, much
Yeah.
different. So we were going out to shows, and then all of a sudden, I developed this incredible love of like more Broadway kind of music, so
Yeah.
musicals, and then theater, of course. Um, but then uh, having Dusty as a husband, my vinyl collection was a certain genre, but his was completely different. So he was like everything from Harry Chapin to Jimmy Buffett to crazy Leonard Cohen, just
Yeah.
like a little bit different. Loudon Wainwright, a little bit different, a little bit
Yeah.
kind of music. So my musical upbringing, and this is something I said to Nico, my son, when he was very young, because he was exposed to so many different styles of music with my band and everything. I said, never be a musical snob. So
Yes.
you don't say, I don't like this, like learn about it. It can be not your preference, not
Yes.
something you're going to go and buy the album,
Hmm.
but don't don't diss it because it is somebody's creativity. And the more you expose yourself to different styles of music, the more your musical repertoire expands, which I think is very evident in Nico because he can play just about anything. I really admire that. Not just as his mother, but really,
Of
I
course,
admire that.
1,000%. And in fairness, he's one of the most talented musicians that I've ever met. And I've met a lot of people over the last 10 years and working in this field. And my heart just goes with people that organically seem to be, their spirit leans towards music and they develop it and create a career for themselves and create a life for for themselves, doing the thing that they love the most, which is having fun with with music in their mind. And it's true. I mean, I got to tell you, you have raised an incredibly lovely man for a son, and I'm sure that Jace, was that your other son's name?
Yeah, Jace,
Jace.
yeah.
I'm sure that Jace was likewise, an amazing young man.
He's wonderful. He's a mechanic.
And he's
So
a
imagine
mechanic, and
having
he's
a
not.
son who's a mechanic and one who's a music director. I mean, it's like one fixes my car, the other one, gives me music. I mean, I'm so lucky, right?
But that's a talent in itself, right? That's music in a
Absolutely.
very different way.
Yeah,
They've
yeah,
got the beat of what's going on in the engine, and I love that.
yeah.
And having such great parents as well to be able to inspire you to have music around you all the time. When you started, and I'm only for a few minutes wanting to sort of bridge that Nico and you piece, because this interview is about you. Nico has his own time on my show regularly.
No,
Uh,
I'm getting are you Nico Rhodes' mother?
Exactly. Yeah, well, and in fairness, he's created some shows that are just outstanding. Even I had the privilege of attending the 88th Key recently, which was extraordinary and funny. Uh, Partially because I knew Nico and had the privilege of meeting Patrick Corton on one of the programs and then in person as well at that showing. It was just, they have a comedy piece to them. And so I'm curious about how you and Dusty brought comedy into your life, because he's just so good at it, as are you. Like, you're very funny as well. So how did that happen? Is that from your parents or
Yeah,
just a light
well,
side of life?
that's a great question, Kathy, because again, Nico was raised through osmosis, and by a village. Like, music was just every kind. Like, I'm at rehearsal with my band that, like I said, I've been with them for 30 years, and he's just a kid there waiting, on the
Yeah.
couch, and my bass player puts down the bass and takes the
Yeah.
cello and starts to play and puts down the cello, and Nico says, "Can I try that?" And then my sax player says, "Do you want to try this?" The whatever sax, and he basically, there were so many instruments around us that he was raised with all that wealth of sound and texture, because music is so much
Very
texture.
much so, yeah.
Now, the thing that seems to be the running through line in my life is humor.
Yeah.
And I think it's because both my mother and father were in World War II. My father was a prisoner of war,
Oh my.
escaped, and then went at the end of the war with my young brother. He was 10 at the time, and my sister was 5.
Yeah.
And they after he escaped and the war finished, they decided to move to Australia for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so and that's where I was conceived. And then they moved to Canada, and that's where I was born. So they had this wanderlust already. And I think it's that way of thinking, that's in the culture of going, what's next? Let's take a chance. And with that, you do have to have a sense of humor,
Yeah.
because if you don't, you will stop when something goes wrong.
Yeah. And things go wrong.
Humor is almost what gets you going through it. And so I think that was a natural element in my childhood. Music was playing. My parents would be dancing the tango on a Sunday morning in the kitchen.
Oh my goodness.
Everything it was about love and goodness. And when Nico was born, his dad, my husband Dusty, had an incredible sense of humor. I mean, the driest, out of the way. I know. I'll be honest. I'll share this one with you. It was in the mid 80s, and Dusty was my lighting designer as well. And somebody said, "So tell me, what's your wife's music? What's it like?" And he went, well, it's a bit of jazz, it's a bit of folk, it's a bit of torch, it's a bit of classical. Never mind, you wouldn't like it. So the self-defacing humor, or self-deprecating, I also have another word for it,
Yeah.
that rhymes. But it's like that kind of humor was something that I was brought up with. Dusty was a perfect fit in my life because we didn't fight. Like, we had laugh fests,
No
So
kidding.
Nico was raised with that laughter. However, there was one person in my group of musicians, with Doug Dodd on piano, music director, who was also Nico's piano teacher for a long time, Charlie Knowles on bass, Tom Neville on guitar, violin, and Jack Stafford on horns. They all had an incredible sense of humor, but my sound man, Phil Posner, who just passed away last January.
Oh my.
Dear Phil was again with me for 30 years. He mixed my voice. Now, talk about somebody who knows your every breath.
No
My
kidding.
sound checks were this long because I could just walk in, he'd EQ the room, he would go, okay, play the band. I don't use monitors. So it was just like, da-da, and he'd go, yep, and I could walk off stage, I'm done. So the thing is that Phil was a highly, highly educated man about Charlie Chaplin,
Mm.
and also Beethoven and Mozart and all the classical, but Charlie Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy. So what you had was this man that had I'm talking a library, like I'm looking at all your books behind you, and I'm going, that was all filled with like Chaplin.
Wow.
So books, and he would write articles about Chaplin.
Yeah.
And the stuff that Nico watched as a kid, because I was careful as to what he watched on television.
Yeah.
I really didn't ever have the television on with, television shows where the kids are going, shut up and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
And it was just
Yeah.
this like whiny, like, no,
Awful.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they imitate that, right?
Of course.
So he watched, Nico was raised, I kid you not, 2, 3 years old, sitting on the couch, belly laughing at a black and white silent film. But the score, the musical score, was Chaplin. He wrote his own music.
Oh,
So,
wow.
the lush, no pun intended, lush life movie film, but the lush sound of Chaplin's music was probably what formed Nico's ears in
Mm.
that without even knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then watching this humor, I mean, this kid would be belly laughing at this guy eating an old boot, and making it, and I would go, really?
Yeah.
And the Laurel and Hardy, so slapstick, the piano falling down, and tripping, and the Three Stooges, that kind of thing. So I think humor was that running through line in not only my life, my married life, my life with my musicians, but also with Nico.
Yeah.
And he would do tripping gags when he was 6, and he did them very badly. He would hurt himself because he hadn't learned the finesse, the art of pretending to trip.
Of course. Of course.
But he always found the gags were
Yeah.
funny. So I think that's where when you see him and Patrick Corton, also a lover of Chaplin, Hardy, and all those guys, when you see their piano heist, you get that element of no, these kids were breathing funny, and it's not making fun of other people
No, not at
that they're
all.
getting their laughs from.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not getting the cheap laughs. They're getting laughs of like their absolute joy, you
They
know?
are. And the way that they play with each other,
Yes.
there's a playfulness that goes with them that is really unseen. And I know that, Nico, pardon me, many times when we've been talking, he's aligned Victor Borg to, some of the work that he does. Like he loved Victor Borg. And I grew up on Victor Borg. I absolutely adore him. He was so much fun to
Yeah,
watch. Uh, was Victor Borg also one of your favorites, or did you have
absolutely.
a favorite comedian or group of comedians beyond Laurel and Hardy that the boys did?
I
How,
think for me growing up, it was Carole Burnett.
oh, of course, Carole.
I just found that anybody who can make fun of herself that way,
Yes.
and make people laugh, and then always end it with that love, that like, I love you, audience. Thank you for making me who I am. And there was always that sincerity with Carole, that I've always enjoyed. And of course Victor Borga was always that was another main course in our family, because it was clever, it was funny, it was stupid, it was
Exactly.
silly. But Carole Burnett, I think, was probably mine because of Harvey Korman and
I
Lana White,
loved
all those
Harvey.
guys, right?
Yes, yes,
And Tim Conway, of course,
yes.
who could be. And it's funny because I was on tour once. Is a kind of a cute story. I was on tour in Alberta with my guys. This is back in the '80s, and I had very short hair. I was much slimmer, of course, and I'm in the airport with my big coat, and I'm surrounded by these musicians that they kind of look like an entourage,
Yes,
and
yes.
we're
How
all
lovely.
waiting. We're standing there in the waiting, in the waiting thing. And we're standing and we're talking like this, and my one of my musicians picked up that right behind them, two ladies went, "Is that Carole Burnett?"
Oh, goodness. How fun.
So they picked up on it, and right away they went, "Carole." I went, "What do they call it?" They went, "Carole," looking right at me, and I went, "What?" And these ladies thought I was Carole Burnett.
Oh my goodness, how fantastic is
We
that?
played it, and they said, "Come on, Carole, we got to go. Time to get on the plane. Come on, Carole." And I went with it. And I'm going, "Okay, boys." So I've been compared to her, not just that time. I've been compared to her a few times because I
Yeah.
love comedy. And for me, Bette Midler was another one
Oh,
that
yeah.
uh,
Completely wonderful in every way.
I mean, the woman can sing, dance, act, and she is so funny. And again, it's that self-defacing kind of humor. It's the one that it's not about me and if I'm gonna be okay. And,
No, not at
do they
all.
like me? Do they like me? Is my song right? And don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
It's just do something and just do what you love and be you.
And nothing better in the world than doing what you love and enjoying who you are. Uh, and honestly, that's what probably makes the work even more beautiful is because it's so authentic.
Absolutely.
It's so authentic. So I'm going to just take a quick break here. I don't really want to leave our conversation, so I won't be long. I'll be right back. But I do want to say to our listeners, if you have just tuned in, I hope that you got to catch that our guest is Joelle Rabu, and this will be available on Act Three Media Station on YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify coming up. So please, if you missed any part of it or you want to revisit it and listen again, I do invite you to do that. You can find us. You can find us all the time. Just go to YouTube and find Act Three Media Productions and look for Kathy Holmes as your host. I want to share a couple things, but while I'm sharing it, I'm suggesting that you go get a piece of paper and a pen because Joelle has a few concerts lined up or a few events lined up, and you're going to want to write them down. You're going to want to make sure that you get tickets. And so, in a few minutes after we get back, we'll give you her website and the way that you can reach out to her. So, by all means, please do so. And in the meantime, I also want to share with you some other things that are happening. I want to remind everybody that on April the 29th, from 8:30 in the morning until 10:30 in the morning, Volunteer Nanaimo is hosting the Red Heart Breakfast. The idea behind the Red Heart Breakfast is that the breakfast itself is free. However, it's the hope that you will donate to the cause. Volunteer Nanaimo is at risk of closing its doors. We are working hard at keeping programming available in this community, especially on Vancouver Island. We know that these programs are so very, very important. And I want you to consider this. If you go to the Port Theatre to listen to Nico Rhodes or to listen to Joelle, the reality is it's volunteers that are greeting you and meeting you when you come into the Port Theatre. So this event is even more important. We need to support volunteers in every way that we can in our community. So I do invite you again. That's April 29th, I believe. And if you want to find out more information, I do encourage you to go to volunteernanaimo.ca. That's volunteernanaimo.ca. And I also want you to save the date, save the date, save the date, because OMG Glitter 2026. It will be the event of the season. It is going to be an evening gala with all of the best musicians in our community are going to be on stage, including Nico. And so please make sure while I'm here, I might convince Joelle to, participate as well, since she happens to be in the booth today. But the idea behind it is that we are raising money for the Foundry and for youth. It's our hope that we raise a good amount of money to help get Foundry open in Nanaimo. It's a cause that is so near and dear to my heart. I love working with young people. I spent most of my career sitting in front of people from grades 8 to 12 who really needed some supports. And so please, I encourage you to check it out, Glitter 2026. Just Google it, you'll find it. And I will have that also in the bottom of the notes of today's episode of Act 3. Once again, Joelle Rabu is in the Zoom booth with me. We're going to continue our conversation. I am I am so happy. I'm happy about glitter too. And we are truly, Trabua is going to be with us. We have a number of musicians. And really the idea behind the program is to raise money for community. And I'm sure in your career, you have seen how music has really helped communities come together, to do some incredible things. Can you think of a time yourself when you were doing something that you really loved? I mean, I'm sure you are doing that every day when you're on stage, and so it's got to be a difficult ask. But is there a time in your life when you went, "This is it. This is what I'm doing. I'm done. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be on any stage, any coffee shop, any pub, any." And what was that like for you?
Wow, that's an interesting one, Kathy. It's funny because I got on stage by fluke.
Oh,
I was assistant manager of Mulvaney's restaurant on Granville Island and doing just fine in the tourism business. Thank you very much.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
my brother came over, and like I said, 20 years older than me, he bragged about me. And he had heard me sing at home, at the family restaurant, the Gourmet by the Sea, up island, that we had for years. And just for fun, sit around the piano and sing a song. And he really thought that I should be on stage. And he happened to brag that day, back in 1983, to a person who knew him, a theater director in Vancouver at City Stage. And next thing I knew, I was being dragged literally because I had a very unrealistic thing about showbiz. Sure, I loved music. I had 8 years of classical piano. I had flutes and guitar and all that. Loved to sing, surrounded by music, but I had no ambition whatsoever to be on stage. None whatsoever. Excuse me. I actually found it unrealistic. I thought, how am I going to make a living? So for me, I was raised in the tourism business with my family's resort and restaurant.
Yeah.
So that was going to be, I speak several languages, perfect stepping stone into the tourism business. I like working with people. So that was my first love and passion and work until I got dragged to City Stage in 1983, and the director of the theater, Ray Michael, the theater was going down. It needed to be
Oh,
resurrected, and he had an old dusty script called Piaf, Her Songs, Her Loves, and he was waiting for the right person. I mean, somebody who can sing the Piaf songs, who understands her life. She was 4'11". I'm 5'8". That gets erased by magic of theater, thankfully. But the thing is that it was absolutely a fluke. I got dragged in there by my brother, and I sang the three Piaf songs that I knew off my head,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's where I met Doug Dodd, my music director. He was the music director of the theater, and that's where I met Doug, and he played, and that was it. The show opened. I kept my job at Mulvaney's for a while, so I thought, realistically, I should have go
Yeah,
back
you
on
got to pay your rent. Yeah, you
what's
betcha.
your big showbiz stuff, right? And and 5 weeks into the show, it kept getting held over and held over, and finally, I told Mulvaney's Bud Kenke, the manager, the owner, I said, I think I'm hooked. And he says, well, the door's always open if you want. And next thing I knew, I was doing a play, and that play ran as one of the longest running musicals in Vancouver's history at the time, and it ran for over a year. And then I
Wow.
continued to tour. So everything was by fluke for me. I really have to say. So when it came to doing something, back to your question, that you go, wow, this is I really want to do. Now I understand this glitter affair that you're talking about. I have always been a huge, huge community supporter. Even when I lived for 12 years in Vancouver, I was the spokesperson for the Liver Foundation, the Blood Bank, for the Vancouver SPCA. I was doing commercials for them. AIDS Vancouver, I don't know how many shows I did for them. And I always did that willingly because I always believe in giving back. And I always remember where I came from,
Yes.
and it's the
Yeah.
people who see our shows or come to our shows. They're the ones who make who I am.
Mm.
I'm not. I don't sing in the shower. I don't watch myself on TV and go, "Ooh," It's
No,
like,
I hear you. I hear you.
right.
Yeah,
So
it's funny that you should say that because I think most of the performers that I've met, including myself, I'm not a singer. I can't sing a note, unfortunately. That's not my thing. I can sing in a choir because other people are carrying me. But it's definitely not my forte. But what I do know for myself is that I never watch anything that's been produced, and almost everybody that I know is the same way. Like it's like it's done, dusted, let's move on, right?
Let's move on. And
Yeah.
it's important that when you keep that reality, like I don't even watch
Yeah.
if we film one of our shows,
Yeah.
I don't even watch it absolutely not the next day. That's for sure. Sometimes it sits on my desk for 6 months before I watch it
Yeah.
and to critique or whatever. But the thing is that I think that the community aspect is so important. When I moved to Nanaimo in 1995, I started a bilingual children's choir, the Young Island Voices. They produced their own
Oh,
shows, like they wrote their own shows that they would tell me what they wanted to write in French and English. I would put it out on a script form, and then they would create these lyrics and tunes. And I went to the, and did all the orchestrations and all that kind of thing on Proteus, on the old platform, the old programs for putting all
lovely.
instruments together. And I basically, started that. That was part of my community thing. So choir, that's why choir maybe comes naturally also to Nico with his Hullabaloo choir,
Yes.
because he was immersed in that. He was 5 years old. So it was natural to have a choir in your community. And so that was one of the things I did. But I think the greatest one, to answer your question, I'm so long-winded, is that it was when I've always been a proponent of mental health.
Yes.
And when Ron Plekas, the late Ron Plekas, gave me a call one day, I didn't know who he was. He was an ex-cop, and he suffered from bipolar disorder.
Oh dear.
And he phoned me up, and he was in a little bit of a psychosis because his ideas were really incredibly brilliant and out there. And he said, "You don't know me, but I go to all your shows." When somebody says, "You don't know me, but I've got your phone number," you're like, okay,
Right?
all right. So, but then he's a cop, so maybe he had it away.
Of course.
So I listened to him. I sat down to listen to him on the phone, and he told me about this grandiose idea to have everybody at one specific moment in time, hand to hand to hand to hand in Canada, televise a song that everybody was singing together. Now, of
Mm,
course, my producer mind goes to, well, what are we going to do with Newfoundland with the half hour
right.
time? Everybody else we can kind of sync up in a way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I listened to his pitch, and I said, "And why are you talking to me about this?" And he says, "Well, I'd like you to produce it."
Oh,
Went, oh, so I produced a bunch of shows and all that, and worked in different forms of media, television, radio, etc. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. I said, how about we start smaller? So I didn't poo-poo the idea, but instead I said, why don't we start smaller? Why don't we start in our community and do an event,
hmm.
Port Theater, and ask them? I said, look, I need a bit of your help. And we paid the rent and everything, but they did give us a little bit of extra time to figure this out, our tech and all that. And I'm forever grateful for those early days, when we were able to do these kind of things. And
Mm,
I basically created this show with Bill Hicks, another great musician from Vancouver,
yes.
right? Uh, Great-hearted, incredible drummer. Bill Hicks, friend of Ron Placus, the three of us produced this show called Open Minds, Open Windows.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
it was all to do with addressing rather the stigma of mental health issues in our community. And it was a sort of a fundraiser, but we thought that's not going to be our objective. So we formed a board of directors. We went out there, everybody did their thing. And our first show on the port stage, we had all these artists that, phoning people favors, da da da. We had members of the Vancouver Island Symphony Orchestra who came and played. We had Tom Lavin from Powder Blues. We had Jim Burns that
Oh
came
my
on a
goodness.
phone call. Yeah, no problem. Let's go, And they all came together, David Gogo, all our community, Alison Crow at the time. She's now living in the
Yeah.
Maritime.
She was on
All
my show. I know Allison. Fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible talent. Holly Bright and Crimson Coast brought out dancers on stilts, no less,
Yes.
like crazy stuff. And then we turned to the visual arts community, and we spoke with people like Denise McNeil, and we went into having a huge scaffolding on the stage and 5 live painters painting the show, and then auctioning off those paintings later on to raise the
Wow.
money. So
Wow.
we had we everybody did it. We did it all volunteer,
Yep.
but we paid the bills and the expenses. And the show was such a success. 802 people for 6 years. We did that. 6 years
Wow.
running. We did
Oh
that.
my goodness.
And the one thing that was so dear to my heart working with Billy Hicks was just amazing. He is such a collaborator
Yeah.
and such a creative guy. Ron Plekas, I'm so sorry he decided to leave this land, this earth, because he was a genius. But what it was more than anything, Kathy, and I'll be honest on this because I do believe in saying things honestly, is that my husband Dusty was also afflicted with bipolar disorder.
Right.
And I was going through hell in our family, trying to.
Mm,
Nico was also going through hell, realizing that this was no longer his father in certain times of
of
the
course.
year
Yeah.
with psychosis.
Yeah.
And our whole family, both my sons, both and our moms and dads, everybody was just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then and his workmates at the Port Theater, who were so kind in helping support him, and because he had moments where they were not very lucid, and then there were moments where he was very lucid, and okay, there he is.
Yeah.
But the disease is so unforgiving, and it does not choose its victims. It
No.
just, when it hits, it is a biological upheaval in the brain. It is a chemical imbalance, but it's also based in trauma from childhood, all those kind of things, right?
Yes.
And if we ignore that, and there are many people who live on the streets who do not have homes, and it's not by choice. It's because the brain is also telling them something that, okay, so we have to be very, very cautious when we judge somebody who's living a certain way and saying, well, they're given every opportunity. They got this, they got shelters. What if you're too paranoid to go into a shelter? What if you're
Absolutely.
afraid that your stuff's going to be taken? What
Yeah.
if you're afraid that somebody's out to get you? What if you have demons in your mind that's telling you to do some
Yeah.
harm, not just somebody else, but to yourself? So this is something that I have been very, very, very vocal about, is mental health, because I cannot stand the fact that people that have all their balls working in their head and
Yeah.
things are all connected pretty well, they can wake up in the morning, go to sleep at night, having a pretty normal day, can stand back and judge somebody who's acting weird, who's dressed a certain way, who's living a certain way, without finding out. And it only takes a moment to find out what that person is going through. And that was the song that I wrote with Doug Dodd. It only takes a moment. And we did a CD and had everybody, Ken Ermter, oh my God, Lindsay Martell, all these people came on board and did the soundtrack, to put on some songs on this CD to that soundtrack for the shows, for Open Minds, Open Windows. So, I mean, there's a huge community thing that just went.
Amazing.
And,
And
you
it's
know,
a similar, we're hoping for the same to happen with glitter for the very same reasons. And what's happening that I'm so glad that you pointed it out too, when we're talking about mental health. The Foundry is a place where people go for the ability to get wraparound service. And young people's mental health is very different and requires, a really, really important wraparound support network of people to meet people where they're at. And there are a lot of people in our community that are, a breath away from being unhoused. I've spent most people who know me know that I've spent the last couple of years working in the unhoused mental health and addictions realm. I've moved into a different department and a different role within the organization, but I never leave that piece of me that is a reminder of, people are coming from various different stages. The colors of those people are as bright as the colors in so many of our other parts of community. If we would only open our eyes and watch them, there's a lot of pain there, but from pain and trauma, can come some very, very beautiful things despite what's happening, in that particular moment. And people do come out.
it's true. And, it's very, very well said, Kathy, because it's so true. It's also, we have to look at our privilege.
Yes,
Some of us have been
1000%.
privileged to have somebody in the family that says, hey, you're not doing too well there.
Yeah,
Let me take your hand and bring you to some help.
agreed.
And sometimes a person suffering from any kind of mental disorder or imbalance
Yeah,
will seek to improve mental health by the help of others. Some may not. Some may be in a different realm because there are so many different forms of mental disorders,
sure.
and basically, schizophrenia can be a cousin of bipolar, which can also enter in depression and anxiety. All those things are all very much along. It's like the spectrum with autism. There is the whole, the whole spectrum, the whole gamut, right? And we have to be careful that when we recognize that somebody needs help, that we're willing to go down that path. But
Yeah,
if they don't, then sometimes it is beyond your capabilities, and that's where, the professionals come in, of course, or whoever is there available. So when you see that a lot of funding cuts, excuse me, I'll get a little political at this moment, funding cuts over the years, way back when, a couple of governments ago, where we were getting cuts of all our mental health programs, all our medical programs basically took such huge chunks out of things. So we can blame this government now or the last government, but it's not that. It's the repercussion 20 years
sure.
later that
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
see the fentanyl problem, we see the mental health issues, we see the addictions programs not being cut, and so therefore nobody has anywhere to go. And then of course you bring the internet and everything else on there, and smartphones, where you have now young generations that are so glued to a screen that is going to tell them whether they're happy or not, is very, very frightening. So it's not going to get any better unless, as a society, socially, we help each other and we support each other.
Yes.
And that means that when there is money to be made, that it doesn't go to the big, billionaires and the rich and the famous and all that, but it goes to programs and to people that, if we're going to go and save a tree, why would we, and save a whale, we need to save a person as well. It
Yeah.
goes all the way through that. Without the trees and the whales and the people, we don't exist. We don't coexist anyways. So
1,000%.
why would we, shoot ourselves in the foot and make money the priority of what our goal is in life, when we could be looking after each other, which in the end, we will win. We will be part of the privileged, everybody will be.
Exactly. And as they say too, I mean, this is I'm sure I'm not saying this rightly, but a good tide lifts all boats, whatever that quote is, right? As we all can come up together when we
A
are all
rising
paying
tide, a
attention.
rising tide
That's it.
raises all.
Rising
Yeah.
tide raises all boats. There's so much importance there. I know that a few minutes we don't have too much time left. We do have some, but we don't have a lot. I did mention to our listeners a little bit ago that they needed to go grab a piece of paper and a pen so that they could grab your information. I think it's a really, really good opportunity for our listeners who don't see this. Joelle has taken a post-it note and she's placed it on her forehead with joellerabu.com. If you go to joellerabu.com, you will find a performances page, correct?
Absolutely, Kathy. And on that performance page, of course, announces any upcoming performance. And it always has a link to wherever the tickets are sold. So they go directly to the link of that concert presenter, starting on April 9th, I think is our next show coming up. April 9th, we're going to be at Char's Landing in Port Alberni.
Yay!
And then we're going to be on Gabriola Island at the Phoenix Auditorium on April the 10th. And then April 11th, we're going overseas again to New Westminster to the Anvil Theatre with this show. So this isn't just Nico and myself. This is just the two of us, but there are actually five of us. I don't know why we call things the way we do.
Well, you guys
Just
are
the two of
singing
us. It's me
together,
and Bua.
maybe?
It's
Oh, I
me
see.
and Bua, the
Ah,
legendary Bua. Yes. So we have a young, wonderful, huge voice, Nigerian culture. And then you've got this older person, more mature in age.
maturity is a wonderful thing.
From another culture. So
Yeah.
we are generations apart. We are cultures apart, Bua and me. But we have this show called Just the Two of Us.
Oh my
And like I say,
goodness.
it's a misnomer because we have a dynamite band of Nico Rhodes, Brad Shipley from Gabriola, Alexandra Lee, who also plays with the Vancouver Island Symphony. So you can imagine these three brilliant musicians supporting Bua and me through a song of decades of different kinds of styles, stuff that he likes, stuff that I like, and then we do stuff together.
Bua is one of my favorite musicians on this rock. Like
He's great.
I saw him for the very first time because of your son. It was his fault.
The
He brought
chapters.
him at Hullabaloo, and I was sitting in the audience with my good friend Judy, and we were enjoying Hullabaloo at that time. And I mean, I'd already known Nico for quite a while, right? But I had never seen a performance of that caliber with so many moving parts and incredible people. And I said to my friend Judy, I need to meet that man, and that's it. And so I have grown quite close to him, and I just absolutely adore the man. His voice is beyond compare.
He's a good
And
person.
combined with yours, which is also beyond compare. Like you have a very deep, solid, gut whirling, fabulous tone, and it's just brilliant. It's absolutely perfect.
Well, Bua is not just a magnificent singer and performer, he's a lovely actor too, but
Yes,
he is such a good person. There's
yes,
a lot of heart there. And like I said, I did a concert recently and I said, I like working with, I'll work with pretty much anybody as long as they're nice. And
yeah, I
Nico's the
agree.
same way.
Yeah. And
He's
that it
worked with
comes
nice
through
people.
when you're working with good people, when you meet kindness. And
Yeah,
kindness can never be undersung. We
no.
just cannot, pardon the pun, you just can't. Kindness is something that just is a radiant, beautiful, engaging, and lovely part of who we are
Well,
as individuals and then as a collective.
and we have each other's back that way too. You
Yeah.
see, there is that collaboration and also the creative collaboration. You got to realize that Patrick Corton, who is the other half of Piano Heist, is the one who introduced Bua to Nico during COVID when Nico's doing the chapters series at the Port
Yes.
Theater and introduced
Yes.
all these people that we may not have known. And it was
Yeah.
perfect. That's when I met Bua. And absolutely, he raised the roof that day and we've never put it back on.
Yeah.
And basically, from that point on, so Patrick Horton introduced Bua to Nico. Nico introduced Bua to me. And then Nico had the idea to bring Bua and I together in a show. And he's the one who pitched it and said, what if we put you two, like two dueling divas kind of thing, because of our strength of our voices,
Yeah.
and put you guys together. And that's when we created Just the Two of Us. And of course, Nico always has that incredible knack of bringing together some of our most amazing musicians on this island. He's
He
worked with a
does.
lot of
He's very,
people
very cool in that way.
and
Yeah.
picking and
No
choosing
kidding.
them for the right role, And of course, he's got his choir Hullabaloo coming up in June, which is, wait till you hear that band. Wait till you see the artists on that. I happen to know, but it's
Well,
not
that's
much.
a stay tuned kind of conversation. It is
Absolutely.
definitely my hope that you will join us again on Act Three. I have been really honored to have you in my Zoom booth today. It's been since before COVID that I used to be in the studio all the time, and I find that this setting is just so lovely for us to have these kinds of conversations in your home and in my home over a cup of coffee. There's something wonderful about it. So I appreciate you being on Act Three. Thank you so much. I've got one more thing to do before we go. So before I do that, I'm just going to quickly let people know, as we talked about, Joelle Rabu, Joelle. She has that beautiful, I'm not sure what that double dot is called over the E, but Joelle, uh, how do you spell your last name? Rabu, Joelle Rabu. There we go. She's got that. She's got it back on her forehead again. It's been a pleasure to have you in the Zoom booth with me today, Joelle. I hope that people will see your show April 9th, April 10th, and whenever else you're having shows, go to her performances page. So as we wrap up, there's my favorite part of the show, right? My absolute favorite part of the show, which is if you could imbibe on our community a gentle piece of wisdom, something you would like to sort of drop to the community collective, right? About your life, about the work you've done, about your music, about your family, about this conversation. What would you like to imbibe on our audience as a piece of wisdom to take away today?
Wow. I think that the thing that comes to mind for me that always has been my mainstay is that I think all we want in life as humans, every single one, I think the only thing we ever strive for is to be understood.
Yes.
And I think that when we understand, whether it's our community, strangers, people we know, even our family members that might be a little bit quirky or different from us, and we don't get along at the dinner table with politics or something, as long as we take the time and grace, and we give them that grace to be understood, I think that we could really build a lot of beautiful things together. And I'm not trying to be, my back into my 60s, anti-war hippy dippy thing, that I was good. I'm just
I'm
saying
all
that
over that 1960s hippy dippy kind of thing. So
my old age is telling me that that's probably the one thing that if you do want love, if you do want things to be better in life, give the time and space to be understood and to understand others.
yeah, I love that. I think you're so right there. That piece of being understood and understanding others, that phrase alone, requires us to be kind and to listen, without the intention of having a solution, but just to hold
No,
space and listen. And I'm so grateful that we've had the opportunity to listen to you today on CHLY 101.7 FM and on Act Three. It's been a delight. Thank you so much for being with me today. All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you. All right, everybody, that does it for this episode of Act Three. As reminder to remind each other, be kind and take some advice from Joelle Rabu. Understand yourself and others around you, and go and have yourself an absolutely exquisite day. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Act Three.